Hey everybody, Always Bookin Comedy. Another Monday night. We're doing it. Got British Jon with us. Probably in California, I'm guessing. California?
I am, sir. How are you? Well, I don't sound like it, but I am. I promise.
Awesome. Awesome. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm okay. I got this thing called vocal cord dysfunction where I just like cough randomly and it's been acting up. So you might do
Sounds
some more of the talking today.
sounds sexy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You a sip of tea? I have some here.
Terrific. So we'll talk about shock collar comedy and touring with famous comedians and I don't know, being a Brit in America. We'll figure it out. How's comedy treating you recently? It's August.
You know what? It's funny. It's treating when you're doing this long enough. At some point, you realize you've been doing it long enough to know what's happening, and you have just a little bit of control over it. And I know, yeah, you know exactly. And I'm on the cusp of something. We might talk about it during the thing. So it's like we've reached a really good level playing field, and there's some work to do. But I know that there is a big accelerating moment, literally around the corner. Well, 8 weeks away, but yeah,
Fun, exciting. So we're like a little more than halfway through this year. How about this year? How's this year been treating you? Anything exciting happen?
Yeah. I mean, I got laid off. So I went comedy full time,
Okay.
which was not the plan.
Okay.
And then comedy cost me a huge opportunity by just one of those things. And then I had to pretend that I didn't do comedy in order to pay the mortgage because I have responsibilities, and so I had to make sure that my life was scrubbed free, and that so I could land a corporate gig. And now, yeah, like I said, it's on the ascendancy. We've had great shows. Had our first sold out shock collar comedy show at Wise Guys in Salt Lake City. And
wow,
yeah,
that's cool. What a great club. That's huge. That's a big club.
Oh yeah, the first time
they let you in there. Why don't you explain what shock collar comedy is?
It's as dumb as it sounds. So shock collar comedy is we have 6 to 8 comedians doing 3 minutes apiece, and they are wearing shock collars. There's usually one lying around. And I just realized they must be in the flood. They must be in the They must be in the flight case downstairs. They are Chihuahua collars, and we set them to 3% of their capability, so no one's getting hurt. But there's 5 buzzers in the audience, 5 buttons in the audience, and if 3 of them get pressed, then at the discretion of the panel, which is myself and either a local headliner and or celebrity, you might go to zap. I guarantee you will laugh one way or the other. That's my guarantee. And then if you do zap a comedian, we have the right to ask you why. So it's from a show point of view. If you're actually there, it's a great experience. It's a 360 experience. You really are part of it. And from a YouTube point of view, well, I let you guys be the judge, but the numbers have been climbing, and they're just going to keep doing that. So yeah, and you're right. Getting it into Wise Guys was, if you know, it's like, how the hell did we do this?
That's crazy. It sold it out. Was it what time of day of week?
It was believe it or not, it was a Saturday at 7:00. It was like
prime time.
Yeah, it was and don't get me wrong, it's not a bringer. And I will also say, like, I'm happy to, your audience is like, I'm going to say like 50% comedians, 50% people who care about comedy. I will tell you now, for the comedians watching, it is not for the faint-hearted to produce something like this. The amount of money, either you book names with a draw, or you spend money filling that room. And I mean money. I don't mean flyers at Kinko's. No. So you got to be ready to drop serious money on Instagram and have the content to do it and have the, yeah, it's a business. It's not like, it's fun doing it. But I tell you right now, up until 30 seconds before that before I hear the walk-on music, it's all business. And then in that 30 seconds, I'm then allowed.
Is it easier at a club at least, as opposed to like an independent venue? You're not doing the ticketing at the door and stuff like that.
I mean, it's been a learning process. You have in mind that the show's not even, here's the crazy thing, the show's not even a year old. It's 11 months and change since we did the first pilot. We did 3 pilots in Napa. Shout out to Barrelproof Comedy Lounge up in Santa Rosa for allowing me to literally work out the dynamics of this stupidity. Lessons were learned. I taught it in Texas in a mixture of venues and what you might call lovingly second tier clubs. Lessons were learned. No venues, never again. There's an exception to that, which is our home. So it's the home is Notoriety in Vegas, just off Fremont Street. But that's very much a mixed atmosphere environment. So they do hypnotist shows. The guy that has the room before me is doing a half naked cowboy thing. Hi, Casey. Casey Deans. We're going to work with him. We're going to put a shot collar on him. The man has beautiful nipples, Mark. It can't be said enough. Beautiful nipples. But they take care of all the ticketing and the audio and all that stuff. So literally I just have to turn up with, the cameras, 10 comedians.
Did you get good content at Wise Guys? Did they let you film and set up stuff?
Yeah. So let's tell you how this happened. So I had, and this is one of those things where you have to treat it like a business and also act on faith, good faith. So we started putting up a couple of the shows in the early days. And I mean like September, October, like in the first 3 shows, you can't even see those online yet. We killed them. We just turned them into clips because the flow was off, the sound was awful, the video wasn't that good. And somebody reached out to me on TikTok, of all places, saying, I would love to do this show. And I was like, okay, cool. Because I get a lot of people saying that. I get a lot of people saying they want to do things. I get very few people that can do things. There's a difference between those 2 points. Like me and you's conversation back earlier in the year. That was funny. But anywho, I said, okay, well, the next show is going to be that I'm booking was going to be in February. It was actually going to be what we call the Super Bowl special. So I did this tour we did the first Vegas show at the end of December, and then we went back in the late part of January for the second show in there. And then I toured the show, and I know what I did, and this is how I made this work. I went on the road with Sammy Obeid, who you obviously know now as well. So I was touring. Sammy brought me on the road with him for Texas because I have a lot of, respectfully, I'm a good comic, and my material works very well with his audience, but also Texas is kind of my second market. Austin, and it's weird for a British guy to say that, but I kind of did a lot of the COVID Texas stuff, and I have friends, high-powered friends in the comedy community there, and he went to lean on that, and I respect that. But I made sure that my show I would do my show on the off nights and late nights. So he would do the 7 o'clock at San Antonio Improv, which is not called San Antonio Improv, it's called something else. Bad manners, John. And then I went and did the Laugh Out Lounge at 11 o'clock. That was, and then he had an off night in Austin. And so I did, I put the show at Creek and Cave. Respectfully, it's because I was able to do stuff like that he wanted to have me on the show, have me with him, because I can, do things like that. And it worked great. I lost the thread somewhat, but along the way on that tour, we learned a lot of things like we don't do venues anymore. El Paso was great comedians let down by a non-comedy venue. It was a dive bar, really nice dive bar, Rosewood, beautiful dive bar. But like the audience was there to drink, not downtown El Paso on a Monday evening in January, February is not, you know. But I didn't have the connections or the thing to, engage with the comic strip. So, you take what you can get. What I'm glad to say is a lot of the comedians we worked with in the early days that never got shown have now come into Vegas or New York or wherever else we've been, and they've done their material again. And it's been a really good experience. It's been nice to give them that. I always give a preferential treatment to those that I put on the show but never got shown. Yeah, long answer to a short question, but yeah, we learned hard friggin' lessons, and now it is only comedy clubs and notoriety, because I mean that's the home of Skankfest. So it's got comedy, it's got, I don't like to say alternative comedy bones, but Skankfest is whatever class you want to call it.
Yeah, I can imagine it. Tell us about some of the lessons, some things you've changed since those early days.
I'll never do the show in Denver again.
Where did you do it in Denver?
Same place I saw you at Wild.
Oh, right. Okay. Who?
She was fantastic. She was fantastic. Yeah, she just absolutely, she took it on faith. It helped that I had a local sponsor with Rick Bryan. I had that solid vouch. Because this isn't something that Comedy Works was going to take on. There's a time.
Now that you've done Wise Guys, maybe.
Oh, don't get me wrong. There's a time and a place, but I'll talk about Denver. I'm not picking on Denver here because there's two very different scenes. As I'm saying that as an outsider. Yeah, we did Wide Right, and we did it. It was the last show before we did the Super Bowl special. And so while I've been touring it through Texas, and that was crazy, I did 6,500 miles in I think it was 13 days in an all-electric SUV. I mean, it's as dumb as it sounds. And because I went the tax write-off. And so and the IRS said, yeah, okay. The comedians there, getting people to sign up for it was tough. I always work with what I would call the head of the local roast battle scene on the first couple of shows, because they get the animals, they get the I'm a roast battler myself, so I know, okay, I'm willing to do try out stupid ones, but it was just a shit show. I mean, I don't think we've never published we've never published it, and we never will.
You're saying it was difficult to book the comics?
No,
or it was more like you called them
yes
up
and no.
in real time.
Some comedians did it. Some comedians I respected didn't want to do it, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with no, I don't want to. But some people, they didn't take it seriously. They did not understand or refused to understand that I don't want you to be stupid. I don't want to shock anybody. That is not the point of the show. The point of the show is you bring 3 minutes of absolute killer material and presentation. I don't want to shock. That's why we stand for anybody that, anyone that doesn't get shocked gets a standing O from the panel, and we mean it. Because it's 3 minutes is tough, especially when you're talking like an initial 3. You and me can do 3 minutes standing on a head, but if we're doing story stuff, you and I are going to maybe only hit 1.5 laughs a minute. Whereas I'm looking for you to bring the heat. That means 4. There's 12 pings. They didn't get it, and not only that, but it was dangerous. So I'm clear about this. Like, we changed the rules for the show after Denver. We now have a rule, a no taser policy. We have to remind people of it, because I have insurance for this. Like, that's a serious, I spent a fortune on insurance for this stupidity. And so now we have to say you cannot bring a taser on stage, because in Denver somebody did. And yeah, it was just for a bit, but we already have controlled electricity. We can't have uncontrolled electricity. The first guy to come up, and you might know him, so I'm not going to call his name out. He doesn't exist in the show. He only exists in a promo reel. When I'm doing this, for the bookers who care about this, before the show starts, we do a safety briefing. Everybody tries out the thing on the fatty part of their thumb. If they're fine with that, then we do it on the neck, and it has to be very specific where we do it on the neck. These are really strict rules. What no one realizes while I'm doing it is I'm also making sure that you are sober. That's important to me. So while I'm doing this, I'm looking at your eyes. And I don't just mean like sober, I mean like sober.
Yeah.
We do the thing, and then we start the show almost immediately. And the reason for that is I don't want there to be a lot of wait time. First guy to come up to the stage, absolutely sober as a judge. When we did the thing, 3 minutes later, I was exactly 2 minutes and 43 seconds later. I know that because I have the tape, because we videoed the safety briefing for insurance. This guy comes walking towards the stage, the music's playing, and his pupils, I can see them from 20 yards away, and I'm half blind, and I'm like, oh dear God, what is about to happen? And they just came, with the exception of Bear Badeau, I'll call him out, with the exception of 2-3 comedians, they literally just came on stage to get shocked. They just thought that was what we wanted. I was like, no, it was garbage. It was horrible comedy. It's horrible to watch. It was even worse to edit. And they were just doing garbage. We have like rules, and I won't tell you all of them, but like some guy got on stage, just took his shirt off, and he had rape on one nipple and sex on the other nipple with Band-Aids. I'm like, I was raised on Hicks and Stanhope. I'm quite fond of, I love Rick Mail. I love alternative out there. This wasn't comedy. This was, I don't know, some kind of hazing for the Catholic Church. I don't know. So anyway, I digress. Lessons were learned. I'll tell you this, 2 days later, by now we'd reworked the format. This is when we now had the buzzers in the audience. And so they were really part of it. And we went to Vegas 2 days later. It was the night before Shot Caller, the night before the Super Bowl. And we were doing a late night show because it was the only time we could make this happen. We were doing a 9:30 show, 12 o'clock finish, the night before the Super Bowl. Vegas was on fire. And it just came together. That night it came together because we made sure everybody knew the rules, the expectations. We had a great panel, Alex Just, Sean Reddy, 2 guys I know as well. So, always good energy on the panel. And that's when I knew we had a show. That is the night I knew this wasn't. First, I realized the value of the work, touring this crap, sleeping in the car, all the stuff you do through Texas. And then I was like, okay, now we've got a thing. Now we've got a format. Yeah. Anyway, long answer to a short question.
That's fun. That's exciting. So where do you go from here? Like, what's after Wise Guys? What's the business plan? Like, how do you turn all those investments into something positive?
So as we sit here on the 26th of August, so I can be quite precise about this, as of 48 hours ago, I now have 2 new editors. So unfortunately, I've had to part ways with my original producer and editor. And I, it's a sad thing. But he just wasn't able to, he couldn't realize the opportunity. And it's a horrible thing because I sound like an old man, and I'm going after the Gen Zers, I think, at this point. He's like, oh, it's too much work. It's too much travel. I'm like, the hell do you mean? It's the new show means we travel every other week, and we go to Vegas, Salt Lake, or somewhere else. We're no longer going to be doing different show, different towns, different nights. Because moving forward, we're going to publish 1 episode per week, but we're going to shoot it as Friday, Saturdays, every other week, wherever we do it. And he said, I'm getting burnout from the edit. And I'm like, what do you mean you get? I'm doing 60 hours a week of work, as well as doing this and raising a 7-year-old and being a husband on occasion and everything else in life, But, young people, they don't know what they've got, so they don't have it, lad, And I'm like, I'm not making him travel. Like, Mark, let me ask you a question, right? First time you went on tour.
Yeah.
Okay. What were you driving?
Same car I drive now that I brought to the mechanic today. Subaru
Which
Outback.
Subaru, how many miles you got on that, my friend?
Today, 328,000 miles.
Barely broken in. And yet he's doing this with me in the passenger seat of a luxury. I mean, this is a horrible flex, but Audi e-tron SUV. I mean, this thing is like driving the sofa. And yet he's complaining that travel's too hard. I'm like, I'm not making you fly. When we do fly, because we do occasionally, we don't, yeah, I'm making fly Southwest with me. I can't quite justify the private jet at this point. But yeah, I feel bad for him. But now what I've done is I've adapted. So I now have a local person who basically sets up and monitors the cameras and the focus and everything for me and the sound. And then I have two other people, one in Salt Lake, one in Austin, who are now doing the editing.
Okay. You mentioned that you're going to go back to Salt Lake regularly? Is that like one of your home markets, your secondary?
Yeah, well, it is now. So the way that happened was we did that show in February, and this young lady who reached out to me on TikTok, she came and did the show, and she was from Salt Lake. And now she was an open micer. She was not any level, in the community. She was an open micer. She did great. Amanda Pender on Instagram. But she said, I really want to do this at Wise Guys. And of course, I want to do this at Wise Guys. I've done Wise Guys twice. I've come through there with other headliners. And respectfully, the owner and the GM, Keith, didn't give me the time of day because, he's invests heavily in his local stable. So when some Muppet turns up with a headline, it's like, well, now one of his locals is losing 10 minutes. That's a rep they want. But she put me in touch with a local producer that Keith has worked, respects and has come through the stable and knows Keith's expectations. And I worked with him. That was Chuck Fury. And, we put together one hell of a show. And I got 8 really good comics. It's episode 6. If you go to Shot Collar Comedy on YouTube, it's episode 6. I brought one feature or showcase person up with me. I don't normally do that, but this was the guy that I owed a favor and I wanted to deliver. So he's kind of a corporate guy, and I just wanted to deliver a really strong. I just belts and braces. I wanted to bring someone really strong that wasn't wearing a collar, so if the energy dipped at any point, I could just pull up, pull a strong lever. Didn't need to, just gave him a spot anyway, and the lineup was so good. And we also learned a lot in that show. We learned that women hate women. Yep. If you're doing a shot collar show and you are an attractive, intelligent woman, and other women have got the buzzer, you are going to get lit up. Envy is a horrible thing. So when we went back there 2 weeks ago, I brought her back on stage, and this time I wore the collar while she performed. And we auctioned the remote. We've never done this before, but we auctioned the remote off. I had Rodney Norman, wonderful. You probably know Rodney. He's like the conscious of TikTok. He looks like God. We had him on the panel, and I said, "What's the local charity?" He's genuinely a good person. I said, "What's the charity should we work with?" And he said, "The homeless." I went, "Okay." And we auctioned for charity the remote for this one set, and every time she got laughs, I would get zapped. And we raised $150, which isn't a lot, but it's great in the show. Yeah, the guy gave his credit card. I held onto his credit card for the rest of the show, and then we charged him at the end. And yeah, it was great energy and great room, and it will be part of the rotation. The whole of Wise Guys will be. That's the plan. Nice. So,
do you have a next date there yet? Or are you still working through that?
No, because there's a thing I can't talk about. So we might be about to change something, a venue. We might be adding it. Well, not changing. We're going to be adding. The hope is, this is hard to imagine. Can you imagine there being a venue that is strategically and even more brand focused? A massive improvement. This is the club second only to the Comedy Store. No, it's not in LA, but we're in conversations with them right now to do a thing. And so if that comes off, then that is the not just life changing, but show changing moment, because then we're going to have the profile and everything will change immediately. It won't be me just throwing it up there all the time. It's going to get pushed.
Sure. We got a question from online. You've touched on this a little bit, but you can probably talk about it more. Are you able to do that show format anywhere, or do you have any requirements to make it work for you?
I can pretty much adapt to it. If somebody wants to co-produce it with me, the answer is I can make it work. The rule is it has to be the comedy club or comedy adjacent. So we're looking at doing it. Because I'm usually against it, but I was in either Seattle or Tacoma. There was a venue that's famous for punk bands and comedy. And so we could do an Eventbrite and make it work, and they could push it. But yeah, I need a strong local. I need somebody who's strong in the local market. I also need a producer who can get us a good headliner.
And wanted to list out the reasons for that. It sounds like number one is so you get butts in seats. Because it shows
the show doesn't work without an audience. Otherwise, we're just torturing people. And that's kink.com's territory.
Yeah. Is there any other advantage to a comedy club or comedy adjacent, or is it mostly about the baked in audience and the marketing?
Access to the talent is a certain level of validation. And I like working with, one of the great things about working with Wise Guys is having access to their stable of developing talent. I mean, that's just, and that's not the same for every club in the world. I wish it was. But it is, the format. We can make the format work anywhere. And I'm insured in all the states. That's the crucial thing. I have insurance for all 50 states. Although I cannot perform it currently, I don't know why this is. I can perform it on Army bases, but not Navy bases. There's a weird condition. I don't know why that is, but there you go.
Interesting. Okay, well, we got to start landing this plane.
Sorry.
It's okay. What's I don't know. Let's zoom all the way to next year. What's next? Are you planning to be full-time comedy for a long time?
I've got myself in a really interesting situation, literally in the last 3 weeks. So I have a tattoo. You obviously know Bill Hicks. If you work in marketing, kill yourself. So I have that tattoo on the inside of my arm, which I have to cover up when I'm working. But I think the acceleration on this thing is such that next year I can actually make the jump. We're very close, I think, to being able to. One of the things you'll find interesting if you look at the YouTube shorts is we've never shown anybody being zapped on a short, and that was strategic because we knew those clips would do well. We wanted an audience before we pushed that side of the show. Because it's ironically the side of the show we don't want to push, but we also know it will get the eyeballs. So 2 new editors, one based in Austin, that's strategic. One based in Salt Lake, that's strategic. Vegas, Austin. And then next year, we're going to go back to New York. We'll definitely go back to Orlando. I'm trying to think, there will be, wherever there is a big security conference next year, if there's a big IT security conference, there will be a Shot Collar Comedy on a Thursday night in your city. I can promise you that. So if you work in IT security, if you know what a CISP is, and you want to be part of this, then get in touch.
Nice. Awesome. Tour. So real quick, let's talk about one way you get stage time is you tour with Sammy Obeid. Just more generically, you offer some like filming services. How does that come about? You got any other fish in a fryer in that?
Yeah, you saw that in action. Actually, you got your own videos. So Sammy and I have known each other for a good while. When Shot Collar started, we were just 2 cameras. Sammy wanted, and I was working with Sammy separately, and he said he wanted to get a 3rd camera, for reaction cameras for his specials, and also, he lives on TikTok. That's how he pays his bills. And so we got the 3rd camera, and we repackaged the show. And so literally, I have a flight case down here, which you've seen. I have a Pelican. I'm ex-military, so everything's Pelican around here. I have a Pelican flight case, which has got the 3 camera setup in it. And yeah, and I make it available to other comedians. So if you want a 3 camera setup, all 4K, usually the quality is pretty high on this. Then as long as I'm featuring, then I'm not going to charge you for it because it's recording me anyway. I'm very open, but I have a corporate career, so I just expense my flights. I find a security reason to be there. There's always a security reason to be somewhere. And yeah, and the same as I do with Sammy, I'll do with anybody.
Nice. That's a good advertising. And how can people find you and Shock Collar Comedy if they want to watch some of these clips?
Everything's at Instagram. So shockcollarcomedy.club for the shockcollarcomedy.club for the internet, and Shock Collar Comedy on Instagram, and just DM me. And yeah, subscribe, follow, enjoy. I hate doing that part of the job, but
awesome. All right. Well, we got some thanks from North Carolina. We're going to wrap this up. We'll be back next Monday, everybody. It's Always Bookin Comedy. British Jon sticking around for a second. Thanks, everybody. Have an awesome week. So good to